My name is Alara Quinn. I'm 36 years old, and the moment everything changed in my life didn't come with shouting or tears. It came with a bill. It was Easter evening. The table was too full, the room too loud, the air thick with that forced kind of happiness families pretend is real. My mother waited until everyone had finished eating before she made her move. She folded a piece of paper slowly, deliberately, then slid it across the table toward me. 6,000 for Noah's truck repairs, she said, her voice calm but loud enough to silence the room. You don't have children. You don't have responsibilities. It's time you start contributing like you should. Every conversation died instantly. 13 people, all staring at me. Waiting. I could feel it, the expectation. They wanted a reaction, a protest, maybe even tears. I gave them nothing. I picked up the paper, glanced at the number, then quietly reached for my bag. My fingers were steady as I pulled out my card. No hesitation, no questions. I paid. Right there at the table. The sound of the transaction notification felt louder than anything anyone could have said. My coffee sat untouched, slowly losing its warmth as the silence stretched. They thought that meant they had won. They were wrong. I opened my notebook, ripped out a page, and wrote 5 short lines. No one spoke while I did it. They were too busy watching, confused now, curious. When I finished, I slid the page across the table. Sign it. My mother smiled immediately. That familiar, satisfied smile, the one she wore whenever things went exactly the way she planned. She didn't read a word. She signed. My brother followed without thinking, his signature quick, careless. My father barely looked down. His pen moved out of habit, not interest. But my sister, she read it. Once. Then again. Her expression changed so quickly it was almost invisible, unless you were looking for it. I was She leaned toward my mother, her voice barely a breath. You shouldn't sign this. My mother didn't even glance at her. Don't be dramatic. It's nothing. And just like that, she signed too. That was the last time my silence was mistaken for weakness. Because what they signed that night didn't just settle a payment. It rewrote everything. And this time, I was the one holding the pen. I've worked in logistics for over a decade. Gray Line Freight, East Terminal, second loading bay past the fuel docks. My shift starts before sunrise, when the world is quiet and people haven't started pretending yet. 3 monitors, endless movement. Shipments, delays, reroutes, losses. I track everything. Where it started, where it's going, where it went wrong. Because nothing ever truly disappears. It just ends up in someone else's hands. That's something this job teaches you quickly. And I was good at it. Too good, maybe. I could hear panic in someone's voice and stay calm. I could trace a problem back to the exact moment it began, even if no one else noticed until it was too late. But there was one system I never analyzed. My own family. I lived alone. A small apartment on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy, just quiet. And that quiet mattered more than anything. Because the moment I stepped outside it, I became the solution to everyone else's problems. In my closet, hidden behind a stack of old boxes, there was a dark green envelope. One word written across it. Escape. Under it, a warning I had written to myself. Do not open, no matter what they ask. Every month, without fail, I added money to it. Not a random amount. Not leftover cash. A fixed promise. That envelope wasn't savings. It was a deadline. A plan I had delayed for years. a one-way ticket out of everything that had slowly been draining me. The idea had started with something small. A photo I once saw online, cliffs, ocean, endless sky. A place where no one knew me, where no one needed anything from me. For the first time in my life, I wanted something that was only mine. No obligations. No guilt. No expectations. Just peace. But every time I got close to making it real, something happened. My brother needed money. My sister needed help. My mother needed control. And somehow, every time, it became my responsibility. Because in this family, I wasn't seen as a person. I was seen as a resource. The reliable one. The quiet one. The one who would always say yes. And for years, I did. Until the day I realized something terrifying. It was never going to stop. Not unless I stopped it. And that realization didn't come during a fight. It came in silence. The same kind of silence that filled the room that Easter night. The difference was, that time, I was ready. And they had no idea what they had just agreed to. The morning after Easter arrived like any other, quiet, gray, and indifferent. But something inside me had shifted. Not broken. Not cracked. Shifted. I woke before my alarm, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of the night before. The paper, the signatures, the way no one had questioned me, because they never thought they had to. That was their first mistake. I didn't rush. I made coffee, let it sit too long, then drank it anyway. Routine mattered. It kept everything looking normal. Because for now, normal was my advantage. By the time I reached Gray Line Freight, the sky was still a dull shade of blue, barely awake. The warehouse hummed with its usual rhythm. Forklifts whining, scanners beeping, voices calling out numbers that blurred into background noise. I slid into my seat, logged into my system, and let the screens light up. Shipments. Routes. Accounts. Everything moving. Everything traceable. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment longer than usual. Then I opened a separate file. Not work-related. Not company-issued. A personal log. Time-stamped. Detailed. Precise. Because if there was one thing I understood better than anything, it was patterns. And my family had one. The first entry went back 8 years. March 12th, $2,300. Noah's temporary business loss. Temporary. That word had followed me for years. Every crisis was temporary. Every favor was just this once. Every sacrifice expected. I scrolled. July 4th, $800. Lila's rent gap. November 22nd, $1,150. Medical bill, no receipt provided. January 9th, $3,600. Emergency, no explanation. Line after line. Year after year. No contracts. No repayments. No questions allowed. Until now. At 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. I didn't need to check to know who it was. Noah. Of course. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then answered. Hey, he said, casual, like nothing had happened. About yesterday. I paid, I interrupted. Yeah, I know. Appreciate it. Just wanted to say. You signed something. Silence. It lasted just long enough for him to realize I wasn't continuing. Yeah, he said finally. Do you remember what it said? Another pause. Longer this time. No, not really. Mom said it was just formality stuff. I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. Right, I said softly. Of course she did. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I replied. Just making sure we're on the same page. Yeah, we are, he said quickly. Too quickly. Look, I gotta run. Work stuff. Thanks again, Alara. The call ended before I could respond. He always did that. Took what he needed. Left before anything real could be said. At 10:02 a.m., another message came through. This time from my mother. No greeting. No acknowledgement. Just a sentence. We'll need to discuss the summer expenses soon. I stared at the screen. Read it twice. Then locked my phone without replying. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to answer immediately. Work passed in fragments. Numbers came and went, but my focus drifted between screens and memory. Every favor I had done. Every time I had said yes. Every moment I had convinced myself it was love. But love doesn't keep score. And yet, they always knew exactly what I owed. By noon, I had already done more than my actual job required. Reports filed, errors corrected. A missing shipment traced to a mislabeled dock 3 states away. Control. That's what this environment gave me. Clarity. Everything made sense here. Unlike my family. But not anymore. Now, they were just another system. And systems could be mapped. That evening, I didn't go home. Instead, I drove somewhere I hadn't visited in years. A small office building on the edge of downtown. Quiet. Forgettable. The kind of place people walked past without noticing. Exactly why I chose it. I parked, sat in the car for a moment, then reached into my bag. The dark green envelope. Escape. I hadn't opened it in months. My thumb ran along the edge before I finally broke the seal. Inside. Cash. Receipts. And a folded document. Different from the one they signed. This one had been waiting. Prepared. Updated. Ready. I stepped out of the car and walked inside. The hallway smelled faintly of old paper and cleaning solution. The lights flickered slightly, cheap, inconsistent. At the end of the corridor, a single office door stood half open. I knocked once. Come in, a voice called. Daniel Reeves looked exactly the same as I remembered. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of man who didn't waste time on unnecessary words. Ms. Quinn, he said, standing. It's been a while. It has, I replied, stepping inside. He gestured toward the chair across from him. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind. I almost did, I admitted. But you didn't. No. I placed the folded paper from my bag onto his desk. He didn't touch it immediately. Instead, he studied me. Something happened, he said. Yes. Family? A small pause. Yes. He nodded like he expected that answer. They usually are the reason people come back. I let out a quiet breath. They signed it, I said. That got his attention. His eyes dropped to the document, then back to me. All of them? All the ones that matter. A slow, measured silence followed. Then finally, he reached for the paper. Unfolded it. Read. Once. Carefully. Then again, slower. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair. Well, Daniel said, his voice calm but edged with something sharper. That certainly changes things. I want it activated, I said. No delays, no revisions, no warnings. He studied me again. Making sure. You understand what this does, he said. I do. There's no undoing it. I know. And once it starts. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I've already spent years paying for their choices, I said quietly. Now they get to face them. Daniel held my gaze for a long moment. Then. He nodded. All right, he said, reaching for his pen. Let's begin. That night, I returned home later than usual. The apartment was exactly as I left it. Still. Silent. Safe. I placed my bag down, slipped off my shoes, and walked straight to the window. The city lights stretched endlessly, glowing in the distance like something unreachable. For years, I thought freedom looked like that. Far away. Difficult. Almost impossible. But now, it felt closer. Because freedom isn't always about leaving. Sometimes, it's about finally letting go. My phone buzzed again. A new message. Lila. Hey, can we talk? I stared at it for a moment. Then another message followed. It's about what you made us sign. So. She knew. Or at least, she suspected. I typed a response. Simple. Direct. Tomorrow. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Okay. I set my phone down and leaned back against the wall. Closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel tired. I felt ready. Because tomorrow, things wouldn't just start changing. They would start unraveling. And this time, I wasn't the one holding everything together. I was the one pulling it apart. The next morning didn't wait for me to be ready. It arrived sharp, immediate, unforgiving. I was already awake when my phone rang. Lila. Earlier than usual. Too early for casual conversation. I let it ring once, twice. Then answered. Where are you? She asked. No greeting. No softness. Straight to it. At home, I said, my voice steady. Why? I'm outside. I paused. Walked slowly toward the window and pulled the curtain just enough to see the street below. Her car was there. Engine still running. Impatience always showed in small ways with her. I'll be down in 5 minutes, I said. No, she replied quickly. I'm coming up. The call ended before I could respond. Of course she was. I didn't rush. That was important. Control isn't just about what you do. It's about what you don't. By the time the knock came, I was already standing near the door. I opened it before she could knock again. Lila Harper looked exactly like she had the night before, except now the confusion was gone. Replaced with something sharper. Fear. You need to explain something, she said, stepping inside without waiting. I closed the door quietly behind her. Coffee? I asked. She turned to me like I had said something absurd. Are you serious right now? Yes. No, Alara, I don't want coffee, she snapped. I want to know what we signed. I nodded slowly. All right. I walked past her into the living room, gesturing toward the chair. Sit. She didn't. Fine. That paper, she said, her voice tightening. That wasn't just some receipt, was it? No, I said calmly. Her breath caught. I knew it, she whispered. I knew something was wrong. I watched her carefully. Measured. Precise. What did you think it was? I asked. I don't know, she said, running a hand through her hair. But it didn't feel right. And Mom she didn't even read it, Alara. No, I agreed. She didn't. And Noah didn't care. Dad didn't even look. Her voice cracked slightly. But you just sat there like it didn't matter. It mattered, I said quietly. Then tell me what it is. Silence stretched between us. This was the moment. The line. Once I said it out loud, there was no going back. You remember how much I paid yesterday? I asked. 6,000, she said immediately. And before that? She hesitated. That's not the point. It is, I replied, because that paper connects all of it. Her eyes narrowed. I don't understand. No, I said softly. You never really tried to. That hit. I saw it land. I tried, she said defensively. I just didn't know everything. You didn't want to, I interrupted. That's not fair. It's accurate. The room tightened. Not with volume, but with truth. I walked to the small table near the window and picked up a thin folder. Placed it in front of her. Open it. She hesitated, then slowly did. Inside were copies. Dates. Amounts. Records. Her eyes moved faster with each page. What is this? She whispered. My history, I said. With all of you. She flipped another page. And another. Her breathing changed. This can't be right. It is. No, Alara, this is too much. This is years. Yes. You never said anything. I did, I said quietly. You just didn't hear me. She looked up. And for the first time, there was no argument in her expression. Just realization. So what did we sign? She asked again. Slower now. Careful. I took a breath, then answered. A financial accountability agreement. Her face went pale. A what? It formalizes every transfer I've made to this family over the last 8 years. That's not possible, she said immediately. We never agreed to that. You did, I said. Last night. Her head shook, but there was no confidence behind it. No, we signed something for Noah's payment. You signed what was in front of you. Her voice dropped. What does it mean, exactly? I held her gaze. It means that everything I've given is no longer a gift. The words settled heavily in the room. It's a recorded liability. She stepped back slightly, like the distance might change what she was hearing. No, she said. No, you wouldn't do that. Wouldn't I? This is family. Yes, I said. And that's exactly why it went on for so long. Her hands trembled now. You're saying we owe you? I'm saying, I corrected calmly, that you acknowledge the record of what already exists. That's insane, she whispered. No, I said softly. What's insane is pretending it never mattered. She closed the folder abruptly. This is wrong. Is it? Yes, you can't just turn years of helping into debt. I didn't, I said. You did. Her eyes snapped to mine. What? You signed it. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely steady. That depends. On what? On whether this family finally understands something. And what's that? I stepped closer. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just certain. That I am not an unlimited resource. Her eyes filled slightly, but she didn't look away. You could have just talked to us, she said. I did. No, I mean really talked. I did, I repeated. And every time, it ended the same way. I gestured toward the folder. With another entry. She sank slowly into the chair behind her. Defeated. Processing. So what now? She asked again. This doesn't just disappear, does it? No. And Mom, she has no idea. No, I said. Not yet. Lila let out a long, shaky breath. She's going to lose it. Probably. And Noah will deny it. And Dad will stay quiet. A bitter half-laugh escaped her. Yeah, that sounds about right. She looked back at me. Really looked this time. Like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. You've been planning this, she said. Yes. For how long? I thought about it. The envelope. The records. The waiting. A long time, I answered. Her voice softened. Why now? I didn't hesitate. Because last night proved something. What? That nothing was ever going to change. Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. Uncomfortable, but real. Lila stood slowly, holding the folder tighter than before. What are you going to do with this? She asked. Nothing, I said. Unless I have to. Her eyes searched mine. And if you do? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't shift my posture. Didn't soften the truth. Then I collect. She nodded slowly. Not in agreement. In acceptance. I need to think, she said. You should. And you're not going to stop this? No. She hesitated at the door. One more thing, she said quietly. Yeah? Her voice dropped just enough to reveal something fragile beneath it. You're serious about this, aren't you? I met her gaze. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Yes. The door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, the first crack had formed. Not in me. In them. I stood there for a moment longer, then walked back to the window. Her car stayed parked for a full minute before finally pulling away. She wasn't running. She was thinking. That mattered. Because unlike the others, Lila had read the page. And now, she understood the cost of it. My phone buzzed again. This time, a group message. Family thread. Of course. Noah. What the hell did you do? My mother. Ilara, call me immediately. My father. We need to talk. And Lila. Nothing. I looked at the messages. Then locked my phone. Set it down. And walked back to the table. The space where everything had started. Where silence had once meant surrender. Now, it meant something else entirely. It meant I was done explaining. And they were just beginning to understand. By noon, the silence broke. Not gently. Not gradually. It shattered. I was at my desk when the first real call came through. Not a message. Not a warning. A call. From my mother. I watched it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Every instinct I had built over the years told me to answer immediately, to fix it, to calm her down before things escalated. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. I let it ring until it stopped. 10 seconds later. It started again. This time, I answered. "Ilara Quinn," I said evenly. Her voice hit instantly. Sharp, controlled, furious beneath the surface. "What have you done?" No greeting. No warmth. Just accusation. "I think you should be more specific," I replied. "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "Lila just left here and she's talking nonsense. Contracts? Agreements? Debt?" Her voice tightened around that last word like it physically hurt to say it. "Yes," I said calmly. "That sounds accurate." A pause. Short. Dangerous. "You expect me to believe," she said slowly, "that you turned a family dinner into some kind of legal trap?" I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the screen in front of me, numbers moving in quiet order. "You called it a contribution," I said. "I just defined what that means." "That is not what happened." "It is." "No," she said firmly. "What happened is you paid for your brother's repair like you should have, and then you—" "Like I should have?" I repeated softly. That stopped her. For a moment. Then she doubled down. "Yes, you don't have the same responsibilities as the rest of us. You have more flexibility." "Say it," I interrupted. Silence. "You have more money," she finished. There it was. Finally. Out loud. "And that makes it mine to give?" I asked. "It makes it your responsibility to help your family." "I have." "No," she snapped. "You've done what any decent person would do." I smiled faintly. Because that sentence, that exact sentence, was why we were here. "I agree," I said. She hesitated. Thrown off. "You agree?" "Yes." "With helping?" "With being decent," I clarified. "But decency doesn't mean unlimited access." Her tone shifted. Less anger. More calculation. "Ilara," she said, softer now, "if this is about feeling unappreciated, we can talk about that." "We are talking about it." "No," she said quickly. "We're talking about paperwork. That's not the same thing." "It is now." Another pause. Longer this time. She was thinking. Adjusting. Changing strategy. I could almost hear it happening. "You embarrassed this family," she said finally. "No," I replied. "I documented it." "That's the same thing." "It's not." "To us it is." And that was the problem. It always had been. "You signed it," I said. "I did not agree to any debt." "You agreed to the record." "I didn't read it." "That doesn't change it." Her voice rose again. "That absolutely changes it." "No," I said, still calm. "It just proves you didn't think you needed to." Silence. Heavy. Pressing. "What do you want?" she asked suddenly. There it was. The real question. Not anger. Not denial. Control. "What do you want, Ilara?" I looked at my reflection in the dark edge of the monitor. For years, I didn't know how to answer that. Now, I did. I want balance, I said. That's vague. It's intentional. No, it's avoidance. No, I corrected. It's restraint. Her frustration bled through again. Stop speaking like this, say what you mean. I didn't hesitate. I mean that this family doesn't get to take from me without recognizing the cost anymore. We've always recognized it. No, I said. You've always expected it. The line went quiet again. Then, a new voice. Deeper. Slower. My father. Ilara. I closed my eyes for half a second. Of course. He had been there the whole time. Listening. Waiting. You let her talk first, I said. I wanted to understand, he replied. And now you do? A pause. Yes. Good. You're making a mistake, he said calmly. Am I? Yes. How? You're turning family into transactions. I let out a slow breath. No, I said. I'm acknowledging that it already was. That's not how we see it. I know. And that matters. It used to. Another pause. Then. You think this gives you control, he said. I don't think that. You're wrong. No, I said quietly. You are. I sat forward now, my tone unchanged, but sharper beneath the surface. Control was never the goal. Then what is? Clarity. That's just a different word. No, I said. It's a different outcome. Behind his voice, I could hear my mother again. Whispering. Agitated. Pushing. Always pushing. He ignored her. For 8 years, he said, you never had a problem helping. That's not true. You never said anything like this. I said plenty. Not like this. No, I agreed. Not like this. Why now? Because you made it obvious. Because you signed without thinking. Because you proved I didn't matter, only what I could provide. But I didn't say any of that out loud. Instead, I said something simpler. Because now you have to listen. Silence. Then, Noah's voice cut in. Louder. Less controlled. This is insane. I didn't react. You can't just decide we owe you money, he continued. That's not how this works. It is now. No, it's not. You signed it. I didn't read it. That's not my responsibility. That's manipulation. That's documentation. His breathing got heavier. Angrier. You planned this, he said. Yes. For what? Revenge? No. Then what? I leaned back again. Steady. Certain. For the moment you'd stop seeing me as automatic. That hit him. I could tell. Because for the first time, he didn't immediately argue. You're blowing this out of proportion, my mother jumped back in. We're talking about family support, not some business deal. Then why does it only go one way? I asked. It doesn't. Name one time it didn't. Silence. No one answered. That's what I thought, I said quietly. The call stretched. No resolution. No agreement. Just tension. Building. Shifting. Changing shape. Finally, my father spoke again. This isn't over. I know. We'll figure this out. I almost smiled. No, I said. You'll understand it. And before they could respond, I ended the call. The warehouse noise returned instantly. Forklifts. Voices. Movement. Normal. Predictable. Controlled. Unlike what I had just left behind. My hands rested on the desk for a moment. Still steady. Still calm. But something else now. Something new. They were no longer dismissing it. They were reacting. Which meant it was working. At 2:14 p.m., an email notification appeared. From Daniel Reeves. Subject line: Activation confirmed. I opened it. Short. Direct. No unnecessary words. Documentation filed. Agreement legally recognized under applicable terms. Enforcement options now available upon request. I read it once. Then again. Slowly. Carefully. Because this was the point of no return. I closed the email, locked my screen, and sat back in my chair. For years, I thought freedom meant distance. Escape. Running. But now I understood something better. Freedom isn't about leaving people behind. It's about no longer being owned by their expectations. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't. But they still were. And they were just beginning to realize it. The shift didn't end early that day. But my patience did. By the time I walked out of Gray Line Freight, the sky had already started dimming into that cold gray blue that always made the city feel heavier than it was. The air carried that quiet tension before night, like something unfinished was waiting to happen. And something was. I knew it before I even reached my car. Because they weren't the type to sit still. Not when control was slipping. My phone buzzed the second I opened the door. Noah. Again. I stared at the name longer this time. Not because I was unsure. Because I already knew what version of him I was about to hear. I answered. What? He said immediately. No greeting. No restraint. What the hell is wrong with you? I closed the car door slowly. Good evening to you too, I replied. Don't do that, he snapped. Don't act calm like this is normal. It is normal, I said. You're just not used to it. You blindsided us. No, I corrected. You ignored me for years. That's not the same thing. It leads to the same place. He exhaled sharply, like he was trying to hold himself together and failing. You really expect us to just accept this? He said. You think you can just turn around and say we owe you thousands of dollars? I didn't say it, I replied. The record did. This isn't a record, Alara. This is reality. No, it's not. Then prove it isn't. Silence. Immediate. Because he couldn't. You're twisting everything, he said, his voice dropping slightly. Less explosive now, more desperate. Am I? Yes, you helped because you wanted to. No one forced you. I leaned against the car, looking out at the empty parking lot. You're right, I said. He hesitated. Thrown off again. I did choose to help. Exactly, he said quickly. So how can you call it debt now? Because you chose to accept it. That stopped him. That's different, he said after a moment. How? Because that's what family does. I let that sit between us. Then asked quietly. And what does family give back? He didn't answer. I needed that money, he said instead, for the truck. And you got it. Yeah, but not like this. Like what? Like it's a transaction. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again. It always was, I said. No, it wasn't. You just never had to think about your side of it. His breathing got heavier again. This is messed up. No, I said calmly. What's messed up is needing me every time something goes wrong, and never once asking what it costs me. We're your family. And I was yours. That landed harder than anything else. Because it wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was just true. You still are, he said, quieter now. Then act like it. Silence. Again. Longer this time. What do you want me to do? He asked finally. The question wasn't aggressive anymore. It wasn't defensive either. It was something else. Unfamiliar. Honest. I thought about it. Not for effect. But because the answer mattered. I want you to understand something, I said. What? That needing me doesn't mean owning me. Another pause. Then. That's not what this is. It is, I said. No, it's just, things happen. People need help. Yes, I agreed. And help has weight. He didn't respond. I'm not taking anything from you, I continued. I'm just no longer pretending it didn't cost me something. So what, we pay you back everything, he said, almost scoffing. Is that what you expect? I expect accountability. That's the same thing. No, I said. It's not. Then what is it? It's awareness, I answered. It's acknowledgement. It's change. He let out a slow breath. And for the first time since the call started, he didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. I don't know how to do that, he admitted. That I hadn't expected. Not from him. Not like this. That's the first honest thing you've said, I replied quietly. He didn't argue. Didn't defend. Just stayed silent. We'll figure it out, he said eventually. There has to be some way to fix this. There is. What? I didn't hesitate. Stop pretending this is nothing. Another long pause. Then. Mom's not going to accept this, he said. I know. She's already talking about lawyers. I almost smiled. She can try. You don't sound worried. I'm not. Why? He asked. Because she signed it. Silence. Heavy. Final. I'll call you later, he said after a while. Okay. The line went dead. I stayed there for a moment. The quiet settling in again. But it wasn't empty anymore. It was shifting. Changing shape. Because something had happened in that call. Something small. But important. For the first time. Noah didn't just take. He paused. And that meant the pattern was breaking. That night, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove without direction for a while. Through streets I didn't usually take. Past places I didn't recognize. Because I needed to feel something different. Not trapped. Not expected. Just free. Even if it was temporary. Eventually, I stopped at a quiet overlook near the edge of the city. The same place I had come to years ago. Before everything got complicated. Before I started saying yes to everything. Before I forgot what no felt like. I stepped out of the car and leaned against the railing. The wind was colder here. Sharper. Real. It didn't care who I was. Didn't expect anything from me. And that felt like peace. My phone buzzed again. I checked it this time. A message from Daniel. Next phase is ready, awaiting your confirmation. Short. Simple. Irreversible. I stared at the screen. Then looked out at the horizon. Dark. Endless. Open. For years I had been preparing for this moment. Saving. Recording. Waiting. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. Because deep down, I knew this day would come. The day where I would have to choose between keeping the peace or choosing myself. And now, here it was. I looked back at my phone, read the message again, then typed a response. One word. Proceed. The message sent instantly. No delay. No hesitation. Somewhere, things were already moving. Processes starting. Actions being set into motion. Quietly. Legally. Unstoppably. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, took a deep breath, and let it out slowly. Because tomorrow wouldn't just be uncomfortable. It would be undeniable. And this time, no one would be able to ignore it. Not even her. The next morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like impact. I woke up before my alarm again, but this time, there was no stillness. My phone was already vibrating. Not one notification. Dozens. Messages. Missed calls. Emails. Everything at once. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Not overwhelmed. Not surprised. Just aware. This was it. I picked up the phone slowly. The family thread had exploded overnight. Noah. What did you do? My mother. This is unacceptable. Fix this immediately. My father. Elara, call me. And then, a new message. Not from family. From an unknown number. Notice received. Please advise. I opened my email next. There it was. Multiple confirmations. Formal. Cold. Precise. Outstanding balances registered. Accounts flagged for reconciliation. Formal notices issued to all listed parties. Each line was another step forward. Another piece falling into place. I sat up in bed, letting the weight of it settle. Not regret. Not doubt. Just consequence. At 8:12 a.m., my phone rang. This time, I answered immediately. Because I knew who it was. My father. Elara, he said, his voice tighter than I had ever heard it. They got notices. Yes, I said. You actually went through with it? Yes. A long pause followed. Not anger. Not yet. Something else. Shock. This affects more than you think, he said. I know exactly what it affects. No, he said, sharper now. You don't. Your mother's accounts are frozen. I didn't react. That was fast, I said calmly. Elara, he said, his voice dropping, this isn't a game. I never said it was. Then stop acting like it is. I'm not the one who ignored it for 8 years. I could hear movement behind him. Voices. Loud. Panicked. My mother. Of course. She's calling her attorney, he said. She should have read what she signed. You're enjoying this. That made me pause. Because it was the first time anyone had said it out loud. I thought about it carefully. Measured the truth of it. Then answered honestly. No. Another silence. Then why do this? He asked. Because it was necessary. There were other ways. No, I said quietly. There weren't. His voice softened slightly. Not in agreement. In exhaustion. You're tearing this family apart. I stood up slowly, walking toward the window. The city looked the same. Unchanged. Indifferent. No, I said. I'm showing you what it already is. Behind him, my mother's voice cut through. Louder. Closer. Put me on. A shuffle. Then. Elara. Her tone was different now. Not controlled. Not strategic. Raw. What have you done to my accounts? I didn't do anything, I said. The system did. Don't you dare, she snapped. Don't you hide behind that. Reverse it. No. Silence. Dead. Still. Then? You ungrateful. She stopped herself. Barely. But I heard it. Clear as anything. And something inside me finally settled. Say it, I said quietly. She didn't. Of course she didn't. Because saying it would make it real. You owe this family everything, she said instead. And there it was. The belief. The foundation of everything. No, I replied. I don't. You wouldn't have anything without us. I built everything I have. With our support. I almost laughed. But I didn't. What support? I asked. She didn't answer. You think money is the only thing that matters? She said instead. No, I said. I think it's the only thing you noticed. Her breathing turned sharp. Faster. This ends now, she said. You hear me? You fix this, or what? The question hung there. Heavy. Unanswered. Because for the first time, she didn't have anything to threaten me with. You'll regret this, she said finally. No, I replied softly. I won't. I ended the call. Not abruptly. Not emotionally. Just decisively. The apartment felt different now. Not quiet. Not empty. Clear. I walked to the closet, opened it, and reached for the dark green envelope. Escape. For years it had been a promise. A backup plan. A way out. I held it in my hands for a moment. Then, set it down. Because something had changed. I didn't need to escape anymore. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Phase completed, awaiting next instruction. I typed back slowly. No further action. A pause. Then. Understood. That was it. No escalation. No destruction. Just boundary. I walked back to the window one last time. The city stretched out the same as always. But it didn't feel the same. Because for the first time, I wasn't standing in it as someone who owed everything. I was standing in it as someone who chose. And that changed everything. Later that evening, a single message came through. From Lila. I understand now. I read it twice. Then replied. Good. Another pause. Then. I'm sorry. I stared at those words longer than I expected. Not because I needed them, but because I never thought I'd hear them. I typed back. Simple. Honest. So am I. And that was it. No long conversation. No resolution. Just truth. Because not every ending is about fixing things. Some are about finally seeing them clearly. And the truth was simple. Family isn't about who takes the most. It's about who stays when taking is no longer an option. The rest doesn't belong in your life. That night, I slept without interruption. No calls. No messages. No expectations. Just silence. Real silence. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom. 3 weeks later, everything looked normal. That was the strange part. No dramatic collapse. No explosive fallout. No sudden apology that fixed everything. Just silence. But this silence was different. It wasn't the kind that hides problems. It was the kind that comes after truth has been exposed, and no one knows how to pretend anymore. I was back at Gray Line Freight, same desk, same screens, same steady flow of movement across my monitors. Routes, shipments, corrections. Everything still made sense here. Unlike before, I didn't feel like I was carrying anything extra anymore. No invisible weight. No constant expectation waiting outside the door. Just work. Just me. Noah hadn't called again. Not once. At first, I thought he would. Angry, defensive, loud. That was his pattern. But instead, nothing. And that told me more than any argument could. Because for the first time, he didn't know how to approach me. Not as someone who would fix things. Not as someone who would just say yes. He had to figure out who I was now. And that wasn't easy for him. My mother tried. Of course she did. Emails. Short at first. Sharp. Demanding. Then longer. More controlled. Carefully worded. Every message built around one idea. Undo this. Every response from me. Simple. Consistent. No. Eventually, the emails stopped. Not because she accepted it. Because she realized something worse. She couldn't control it. My father sent one message. Just one. We're reviewing everything. No accusation. No emotion. Just distance. I replied with the same clarity I had given everyone else. Good. And Lila. Lila changed. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But noticeably. She came over again. A week after everything happened. This time. She knocked. And waited. I opened the door, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked different. Not physically. But grounded. Like something had shifted inside her, too. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. Yes. We sat in the same room. The same chairs, But the space between us felt completely different now. Not tense. Not heavy. Just real. "I've been going through everything," she said quietly. "The numbers. The records." I nodded. "And?" She exhaled slowly. "You weren't exaggerating." "No. I didn't realize how much it added up." "You didn't need to." That wasn't an accusation. Just truth. She looked down at her hands. "I kept thinking it wasn't my responsibility, that it was between you and Mom, or you and Noah." "It was easier that way," I said. "Yes," she admitted. "It was." A pause. Then, "I started paying attention," she continued. "Really paying attention." "To what?" "To how we talk to you." That answer stayed in the room longer than anything else. "And?" I asked. Her voice softened. "It's not fair. No defense. No excuse. Just that." I nodded once. "That's a start." She looked up at me. "I can't fix everything," she said. "I know. But I can fix my part." That mattered. More than she probably realized. "I'm going to start paying you back," she said. I studied her for a moment. Not judging. Just understanding. "You don't have to rush that," I said. "I know," she replied. "But I want to." There it was. The difference. Not obligation. Choice. "Okay," I said. And that was enough. Before she left, she hesitated at the door. "Do you think things will ever go back to normal?" I thought about that. Carefully. Then answered honestly. "No." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I figured." "But that's not a bad thing," I added. She looked at me again. And for the first time, there was no fear in her expression. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I think I'm starting to see that." After she left, the apartment felt calm. Not empty. Not lonely. Just mine. That night, I opened the closet again. Reached for the green envelope. Escape. I held it in my hands. Turned it over. Ran my fingers across the word I had written years ago. Back then, I thought I needed to leave to be free. To go somewhere far away. Somewhere no one could reach me. But now, I understood something different. Freedom wasn't about distance. It was about boundaries. I opened the envelope. Took out the contents. The cash. The receipts. The plan. Then I did something I hadn't expected. I didn't put it back. Instead, I walked to the table. Sat down. And started rewriting it. Not an escape plan. A life plan. Because I wasn't running anymore. I was choosing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into something steadier. Quieter. Stronger. The family didn't fix itself. It didn't magically become perfect. My mother stayed distant. Controlled. Careful with her words now. Because she knew. They mattered. My father stayed neutral. Observing. Adjusting. Noah. Struggled. But for the first time, he stopped asking. And Lila stayed. Not because she needed something, but because she wanted to. And me? I stayed too. Not because I had to. Not because I was expected to. but because for the first time, I wasn't losing myself by being there. That was the difference. And that difference was everything. Because in the end, freedom isn't about leaving people behind. It's about no longer abandoning yourself to keep them. And once you learn that, you don't need an escape anymore. You already made it out.